The S&P 500, the Nasdaq ones, that's what we're discussing specifically here on the day. Now, when we look at the Nasdaq, the levels you've been mentioning, if you don't follow on Twitter, I recommend doing so. You get the free update every single day what we're looking at, key levels, charts, etc. It's all free, so check it out. But it's 14.6. That's the main level. 1, 2. Can I get a double bottom on the day? We're pushing back up. You start to break back above 15K. I think you're in business for some potential upside. But this is the main point that you're watching. Before you can really get too bearish again, you have to break below 14.6. It's that simple. And specifically when we look across the board at other sectors, and I know you're thinking, ES, you broke below 4,300, and I agree. 4,300 was a massive level, huge level. You broke down. You're currently getting that retest. You might continue down. But, we have to recognize the 200 MA is there, which we'll go into more here in a second. But even despite, seeing this dip down here, I go over the sectors, and again, I can show you XLV, healthcare, right? Got a lot of weakness for this is the daily 4-hour chart too. So you can see easily a lot of downside. XLI, industrials, a lot of downside, right? XLY, right? Consumer discretionary, a lot of downside. But you're kind of bottoming out there, a little bit of bottom. You're trying to get a little bit, right? But we're noticing something really common here. Is a lot of these Dow names, a lot of the things not involving tech, right? We can go to XLK and show you tech to prove my point here. Tech's been kind of on the uptick over the past, week and a half, right? The point here is that stocks that dominate the Dow and SPY are getting hit. Tech names like XLK, a lot of Nasdaq heavy names, which we looked at just a second ago, are holding up the best. Now, does that mean that you're going to go up? That's not what I'm saying here. But when we look here, tech has been resilient. Okay, and I can go down a laundry list of names, right? For instance, and I'm going somewhere with this. Meta, you're holding up really well. You've held 300, 305. You look really good here, right? Microsoft had a little bit of a down day yesterday, right? But you're still holding up 320 almost. You're still holding. Apple, right? We shorted this, but we got out once you get back above 170, 171. You're holding 174 basically. If you get back above 174, you're back in business again there. Tesla, one of the beasts of the day, holding up very well. And again, you're going to just notice the same pattern. I can keep going if I wanted to. NVIDIA as well. So when we look at this, before we start seeing big pain in the market, again, I think it's going to come if Nasdaq breaks 14.6. And that's when you're going to start seeing real selling step in. And you're going to see it really start to affect people's portfolios a lot more. Okay, so that's where we're at. That's how we're moving. Now, a little bit further too. SPY. We had some interesting stuff happen today. Okay, so coming into SPY. I don't know how you didn't test this. So really quick, let's just show you. So 418, 419 locally here. This is your dotted line right here is your 100 weekly moving average. And then the green line is your 200 daily moving average. So massive level here. You're coming right into it. Now, again, if you go to ES, right, ESZ, right, for the new quarter or whatever it is, you're right at it, right above it. You're kind of just sitting right on top of it as we speak. So very interesting behavior and where we're at and how we're kind of acting at these levels. So again, Nasdaq major support, ES broke below that major support, but now it's sitting on top of the 200 MA as well. So there's a big battle going on here, right? And again, I'm going to tell you my personal opinion. I don't think you're going to get aggressive downside selling unless we get more news regarding, and sorry again for all the cuts. I keep having a bad cough, kind of sick today, but that's how we're moving. And so it's just hard to anticipate or expect downside here, right? And when you look here, it's pretty interesting that you keep getting this downside and then buyers just are showing them. This is good behavior. This is what you would like to see. And so when we look at that, it's things to take into account. But what I'd be looking for right now is to see if we get back above 15.05. You get back above that, high possibility push back into 15.25, 15.3 roughly. That's what I would expect there. And that would be a decent pull back to the upside in my opinion. Now going into next week, again, what I said about inflation reports, I think those have the biggest impact, right? Because based on what the Fed has said is if the situation stays the same or gets worse or more stalling, then what's going to happen? We have to raise rates. It's not going to be good. We can't control this. That's been their narrative they're pushing. Okay, so these are things to take into account, things to consider, and ultimately what I'm considering when I'm looking at this. So hopefully this breaks it down for you. Now, I'm going to go into some equities I'm liking, but before you do that, I have to ask you to do two things. Consider liking and subscribing. It helps the channel a lot. Every single day I post videos for you so you are prepared. The Discord link is also down below if you are interested. We show you how we trade, why we trade. We have a webinar once a month sometimes 2 times a month. We want to bump that up a little bit more into the beginning of next year. So something to consider, something we look forward to as well. But as always, like I said, the Twitter is absolutely free. We also have the newsletter on our website and all of our education here. Go over to education. It's all free for you if you just want to learn by yourself, right? We're not going to charge anything if we're not going to manually help you every single day. We always have new stuff being posted as well when we have free time. But again, Twitter free. I recommend following on Twitter. Right. Okay. Equities. What are we liking? Number one, Apple's been one of my favorites. I'm going to tell you this on repeat. Apple gets above 174 and can hold. As you can see today, this is the 5-minute chart. So you got a 5-minute hold and came back down. If you can actually prove that you're holding this level, I think you're going back into 177 rather easily. I'd be a pretty big bull there. So that's what I'd be looking there on Apple. Big fan, watching for it. 174 holds. You're bullish. Until then, though, you can't do anything. Okay, you can't do anything. At 174 here, you're at a clear resistance, topping off here, not ideal. Tesla, everyone's going to ask about it. You're above the key level of 259. You're looking for 264.8. That's your next local level. Really great breakout here. Really good action. You're pushing up really nicely. But again, 264, 265 is the next level. That's where I'd be watching. Okay. I'm not going to go into Meta because it's just not ideal. Microsoft. I'm a big fan here on Microsoft as well. So again, called this out yesterday. Kind of got similar action today. I called it out again today. You pushed up to like 319. Didn't really get any action I loved. You came back down. Right, you bounce at 316.5, pushing back up. So what I'm looking for here is, can we hold this local high here roughly, like 318, 319? Now, ideally, it wouldn't really matter if you came back down. You could get good action like this where you come back down to here and you bounce back up and you start pushing into 322. That would not be bad. OJ's going to kill me for butchering that, but that's what you'd be looking for. 322 is definitely a massive level. That's where you'd be looking for this. So 318 touch, 319 holds, also very good. Microsoft's already moving very well. NVIDIA, really simple to watch. Same thing I mentioned yesterday, cough literally destroying me right now, is 440, 441. You can kind of see this level really easy to identify. You are making higher lows here, so something good to see. So you can see you're making the higher lows. Good to see. Can you mount and hold above 440, 441? You hold above 441, you look good into around 445, potentially 450. It's pretty illiquid to be watching out. But again, I want people to be really careful here because, again, we've seen a lot of back and forth action in the overnight session, so there's no reason to get overzealous or overconfident here. And I also want to say this before I go any further. ES has got to mount 4,300 before you can start going long. If you're below 4,300, it doesn't look that good. I'm going to tell you that really plain and simply here. I don't want anyone to get any false, expectations. Now, those are the stocks I'm liking in particular. Not huge on any, but those are the levels I'd be watching to trade the breakout to the upside. Now, what I want to go into here is what's happening here with the dollar and yields. So we go into the dollar. And the dollar, obviously, there's 2 levels we've been watching. Your local highs going back into last November, and then your banking crisis highs here. Now, we've seen both these levels be respected, right? So the banking crisis, we broke up, came down touched, went straight up to the November high we had marked out there. Very in detail why we're watching these, why we think these are so important, okay? So coming into this level, almost like you're going to break through it, and you got rejected, and today 1-2. So this is decent behavior, and I think this is partially why we got some of the upside that we did. So we look here again. You're kind of bear flagging here like on the 2-hour wanting to come back down. So I'd be looking for the dollar to get a little bit more of a retracement here. Personally, unless we have any other news around BOJ or any other economic news, which I can't really forecast if the banks of Japan's going to do something crazy. I can't give you an opinion on that. Number 2. Oil. This is probably the biggest news on the day. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, oil prices, no matter what happens between now and CPI and PPI, it will not impact that reading. Oil could drop to $0 and we would still have a probably higher than expected CPI, PPI forecast just based on how energy's been priced over the last month. I'm going to tell you that right now. This CPI means going to price in all of this. Like this action from here, basically did probably here, most likely. Okay, so oil, where are you at? Now, it's very interesting because I mentioned this on, I believe, maybe in Discord. I wasn't on live stream today, but you can see that you're coming back into our previous level mentioned right here. So it's important to see how we react here. Now, the news that came out today was that the OPEC demand was not as high as they expected. So this obviously has oil dropping down, right? And so this is going to be interesting to see if we start to bounce off this 85, 84 region. It has been a big level. I think it's very important. I think you need to be paying attention. I don't think oil is just going to drop straight down. That would be crazy. I wouldn't expect that. but keep it on your watch list because, again, this will help CPI, PPI at next month and the month after that reading. So, again, this is the major concern with the Fed right now is energy prices, and they continue to say this is the one factor we cannot predict and we have no control over. So, again, things you need to be paying attention to. Oil couldn't hammer it home any more than this. A little bit deeper as well, going into the 2, 5, 10, 30. Okay. Really quick, we're going to go to the daily, make sure we're there. Okay, so we're at the 2 year. The 2 year is the only one that's not doing much. Okay, so the 5 year, you had a nice push up today, and obviously you came back down. Now, I will say most of these yields were very high today. So the 5 year was very high, but came back down. 10 year high, came back down. 30 year made a new high, came back down. Again, they're following the dollar. Makes logical sense of where we're at, okay? So again, that's why I say the dollar, you need to be paying very close attention to it because I do want to see how it reacts if it comes back down into this level. And if the oil is getting destroyed the way it is, I do think the DXY will track back into the 106, 105 level. It would make sense unless there's brand new news out there regarding BOJ, like I said before. And they've been having a lot of news come out sporadically, so make sure you're on, in touch and on track with that. Again, I want to wrap it up and just go over SPY and Qs really quickly for you guys. Again, where we're at, how we're moving. Okay, let's go to, for instance, real quick to the 4 hour, right? So when we look at something like SPY on the 4 hour, right, I want to make this very known. And something that Jay mentioned yesterday and I failed to mention personally was our volume here, okay? So really quickly, I'm just going to go to the daily real quick. And again, you guys know that I've been pretty bearish here. I have been. But I have to be able to be transparent and recognize where things could go wrong, right, for myself. So when we look at what's happening here, you're getting your most volume right now, right? This is higher than expected volume between right now over the past basically 10, 14 days. Okay, if I go back here, highest volume was back here about 7, 8 days. Go back a little bit further, we had higher volume in this range right here as well. Okay, so what I want to highlight to you here, okay, you even have it here as well. Again, high volume comes in to the sell side right there. Okay, so what am I pointing out here? What I'm trying to point out, and again, I want to just highlight them all so I don't have any questions. Like, oh, you skipped that one, Tyler. Okay, so these are like our 4 highest volume, like consecutive days, as you can see. And what they typically mark out is a reversal. Again, reversal, reversal, reversal. Right here, you can see come back in, reversal, even though some of this was on the buy side, right? It still came down, reversal, and then again, right here. We haven't seen it yet, but you're on top of the 200. You're having decent action. This is what you would like to see. So again, that's what I'm saying going into this. Nothing is promised. You have to continue dropping down. And right now, the safest bet is actually to the upside until you break below the 200 SMA. If we zoom out and we look at how this moved, go back to 2022, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, almost like 5 touches of the 200 SMA, and the projections were disgusting. So again, the expectation here for me has to be a bounce. There's nothing crazy here. I'm not, crazy theories. This is just my overall opinion here. You go back to, 2020, 2021. You bounce, don't really get a touch there. But overall, you try to hold this the whole time, right? So understand what's happening here, where you're at, and kind of understand the trade that's surrounding this and giving yourself the best odds. So despite being, bearish, despite what's happening in the market, I have to be able to recognize what's happening in the oil market, what's happening with what's driving inflation, and what's ultimately brought us down. If those factors start to take a step back, then there has to be the potential for at least a relief bounce or any type of bounce. On the SPY, I would say you haven't had a relief bounce going back to the 15th. So it would make sense to get a little bit of love maybe into 430, 431, even higher. So we have to keep that on track and be willing to understand that possibly will happen. The worst case scenario is that you go into a trade blindly and you just fall in love with it, and that's just all eyes on where you're focused at. That's how you lose big amounts of money. So hopefully you guys understand that, what's going into that, and ultimately the trade that's going to be developed from this. So again, you have my viewpoint on my favorite names, favorite equities. Hopefully, if you have questions, you can comment down below. I'll see you guys tomorrow.